RPG Maker, known in Japan as RPG Tsukūru, is the name of an expansive series of programs for the development of role-playing games, first created by the Japanese group ASCII, then succeeded by Enterbrain. The Japanese name, Tsukuru, is a pun mixing the Japanese word tsukuru, which means make, or create, with tsūru, the Japanese transcription of the English word tool. The RPG Maker series was created by Nicholas Tong and has been released primarily in Japan, with later versions also released in East Asia, North America, Europe, and Australia. PC versions. RPG Maker is a program that allows users to create their own role-playing video games. Most versions include a tileset-based map editor, a simple scripting language for scripting events, and a battle editor. All versions include initial pre-made tilesets, characters, and events which can be used in creating new games. One feature of the PC versions of RPG Maker programs is that a user can create new tilesets and characters, and add any new graphics she wants. Despite being geared towards creating role-playing video games, the engine also has the capability to create games of other genres, such as adventure games or graphic novels with minimal tweaking. History. According to Enterbrain, RPG Tsukūru Dante 98, released on December 17, 1992, was the first software of the RPG Maker series, although there were a few versions of RPG making software by ASCII preceding it, dating back to 1988. This, along with its follow-up RPG Tsukūru Dante 98-2, was made for NEC PC 9801, and games created with these programs can be played on a Windows computer with emulators called Dante for Windows and D2Win, respectively. RPG Maker 95 was the first Microsoft Windows-based RPG Maker software. Despite being an early version, RPG Maker 95 has both a higher screen resolution, and higher sprite and tile resolution than the several following versions. RPG Maker 2000 was the second release of RPG Maker for Microsoft Windows and is the most popular and used RPG Maker so far. While it is possible to do more with Room 2K, it uses lower resolution sprites and tiles than RPG Maker 95. However, it does not have a noticeable limit of sprites. Unlike Room 95, which can only use one set, Room 2K can use an unlimited number of sprite sheets with specific sizes for each type. The tilesets also have a similar non-limitation. However, because tiles must be entered into a database, there is a limit on tiles. This limit, however, is rarely a problem, and even when it is, an unofficial patch exists which can bump most limits much higher at the risk of potential game corruption. RPG Maker 2003 is largely an improvement of Room 2K. Room 2K games can be ported to Room 2K3, and most resources are interchangeable. The main difference is the introduction of a side-view battle system similar to that found in Final Fantasy games on the Super Nintendo. This was the first version made by Enterbrain, which had previously been a part of ASCII. RPG Maker XP is the first RPG Maker which can use Ruby, making it the most powerful, programming-wise. However, many normal, simplified features present in Room 2K3 have been removed. Most of these features, however, have been programmed with Ruby, and distributed online. RMXP runs at 1024x768 resolution, while offering 4 times the playable area of its predecessors. Additionally, it allows greater user control over sprite size and other aspects of game design. This more open-ended arrangement, coupled with the inclusion of the Ruby game scripting system, makes RPG Maker XP more versatile than older versions in the series, at the cost of a steeper learning curve. Upon the release of Windows Vista, many users experienced compatibility problems. Although the fix was relatively simple, XP used a front-view non-sprite battle system that allowed for the use of battle backgrounds. Both characters and enemies had static battle sprites, and the interface was quite simple. RPG Maker VX. Its Japanese release date was December 27, 2007, and official release date in America was February 29, 2008. In this new Maker, the interface is more user-friendly, allowing new users to create games with ease. The framerate was increased to 60 frames per second, providing much smoother animation in comparison to RMXP's often choppy 40 FPS. The programming language Ruby is still implemented, and the game's default programming has been overhauled to allow more freedom to those scripting and new features. New editor and a new RTP are included, this time in a much simpler blocky style. The battle system is comparable to that of the Dragon Quest series or its predecessor Room 2K, with a frontal view of the battlefield and detailed text descriptions of each action taken. One notable disadvantage from the previous version, however, is the lack of support for multiple tile sets when mapping, leaving the player with only a finite number of unique tiles with which to depict all the game's environments. Multiple player-made workarounds exist, but this remains a sore point among many RMVX users. RPG Maker VX Ace is the latest version of RPG Maker released by Enterbrain. It was released in Japan on CD and digital download on December 15, 2011. It was released in the United States on March 15, 2012 as a digital download. It was later made available through Steam, and is also now available as a physical CD. RPG Maker VX Ace is essentially an overhauled version of RPG Maker VX, and removes the issue with multiple tile sets. Battle backgrounds were reintroduced, and are separated into top and bottom halves. Spells, skills, and items can all now have their own damage and recovery formulas, although a quick calculation method reminiscent of the older RPG Makers is available. The VXRTP was redesigned for VX Ace, and a new soundtrack featuring higher quality techno-pop tracks was included. With the release of VX Ace came a large quantity of DLC resource packages, officially offered by Enterbrain, and also available through Steam. Console versions. The first console RPG Maker, RPG Tsukūru Super Dante, debuted in 1995 for the Super Famicom, as a port of RPG Tsukūru Dante 98. RPG Tsukūru Super Dante was later broadcast via the Super Famicom Satellaview subunit. The first official English-language release was a PlayStation version, simply called RPG Maker in the North American market. As of 2007, all North American versions of the console RPG Maker are published by ASCII. Unlicensed distribution. Each Windows version of RPG Maker has been, in some form, subject to unlicensed distribution through the Internet. RPG Maker 95, as well as translation patches for the Super Nintendo titles RPG Maker Super Dante and RPG Maker 2, were translated and distributed by a group called Kanji Hack. In 1999, Kanji Hack closed upon receiving a cease and desist email from ASCII's lawyers. RPG Maker 95 was re-released with a more complete translation under the name RPG Maker 95 Plus by a Russian programmer, under the alias of Don Miguel, who later translated and released RPG Maker 2000. Later versions, RPG Maker 2003, and RPG Maker XP, was similarly translated and distributed by a programmer under the alias of RPG Advocate. RPG Advocate took the translated versions and patches off his website and later promoted the full English version of RPG Maker XP. Both of the translations are still in circulation. Commercial usage. Alpha Chimera, Eternal Eden and Dreamscape are the only commercial RPG Maker games sold by Dejika Company, Limited, Japan, the official sole distributor of the RPG Maker game engine internationally. RPG Maker has been successfully used by the following independent game development companies for making RPGs, distributed by companies such as Big Fish Games, IGN Entertainment and Gamersgate, Old Orly Games, Millennium Series, Laxius 4 Series, 3 Stars of Destiny, Dreamscape, Asgard, The Book of Legends, Cilia, Moonchild, Amaranth Games, Avian Series, Blossomsoft, Eternal Eden, Blackspark Games, Valkorta Series, Dancing Dragon Games, Deadly Sun Series, Skyborn, Dark Gaia Studios, Legionwood Series, Fated Productions, Fated Haven, Chapter 1, Freebird Games, To the Moon, Over Cloud 9, Arivan, Sherman 3D, Alpha Chimera, Team Grease Gris, Corpse Party, Inthrian Guardian, Eternal Grace. Furthermore, the Various incarnations of the RPG Maker are commonly used to create countless commercial RPGs with hentai content, though primarily for the Japanese market. Legacy: as of 2005, RPG Maker as a series has sold about 2 million copies internationally. Also, RPG Maker has been used in studies involving students learning mathematics and programming through the creation of role-playing games. RPG Maker series timeline: see also, Fighter Maker, Game Maker, Construct, Unity, Game Engine, Sim RPG Maker, Sound Novel Tsukūru, Music Maker, RPG Creation Software, Super Columbine Massacre RPG. Umniki, One Night Trilogy, Oni, external links, RPG Maker Web, official English site for the RPG Maker series, Enterbrain.com, Japanese company that produces the RPG Maker series. Freelink Expo, European portal for console RPG Maker series and indie games, Enterbrain RPG Maker XP page, official English page of RPG Maker XP, Enterbrain RPG Maker VX page, official English page of RPG Maker VX, ASCII, US publisher for the console RPG Maker series, ASCII RPG Maker, official portal for console RPG Maker series, RPG MKR. Official Italian portal for console RPG Maker series, RPG Maker Wiki, Mundo RPG Maker, Brazilian RPG Maker community. References